Bhagavatam program, where devotees will read prayers of pure devotees from Srimad Bhagavatam. The current theme, which we have started from last week, is prayers of King Chitraketu. These are very beautiful prayers from Canto 6, chapter 16, verses 34 to 48 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Last week we had Her Grace Prabhupada Priya Mataji. She explained these verses and kicked off with a new theme. And today we have a wonderful devotee, Prashanth Prabhu, who has been also coordinating this program very nicely for the past few years, and so happy he's doing it and helpful for us. So today he's going to present these verses and share his realizations. Hare Krishna, Prashanth Prabhu, over to you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada, Hare Krishna to all the devotees. I want to thank Veena Mataji, Satasar Prabhu, Jai Shri Mataji for this opportunity to do service. I'm not qualified, but for my purification, I hope to share some realizations. Please forgive me beforehand if I make any offenses. So today we are covering prayers of King Chitraketu, which is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, chapter 16, verses 34 to 48. So before we start, we will just say prayers. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Krishna Namaste, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Nityanamane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharne, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desthani, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakti Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And because we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, we also say prayers to Yasdev. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you, devotees, for joining. So we'll first, I won't go through the full story of King Chitraketu, but I wanted to just share some learnings just from the pastime itself. Prabhupada Priya Mataji very beautifully narrated it last week. And I just wanted, reading it again, I just wanted to share some other realizations. So King Chitraketu is already a great devotee, and he's ruling his kingdom, and he has everything that he could possibly want. He has all his citizens are happy, all his ministers are happy, they're all paying taxes, and everything is happening nicely. But he doesn't have a son, and he has this strong desire to have a son, and it caused great anxiety and great anxiety for him. And as a result, his whole kingdom, even though they had everything and they were all relatively happy, materially happy, they also felt the same thing that their king did, which is they had disturbance and anxiety. So Angira Rishi comes, right, and he asks the king, what's going on? You have everything, all your kingdom is going great, but you seem to be disturbed. And he says, he doesn't have a son. So a takeaway here, right, is even though he had everything else, he's focused on the one thing that he did not have, which is a son, and that overcomes everything else that he has. So similarly for us, right, when we have material desires, we might have, Krishna might have given us everything we need to have proper spiritual lives, but we, for some reason or another, we have some material desire, and we spend time, energy thinking about it, how to get it. We instead of devoting time to Krishna, we spend time on that. When we sleep and we wake up, that's the first thing that comes to mind. So similar to King Chitraketu, we get plagued by this anxiety and this disturbance to our spiritual path. So we shouldn't focus on what we don't have. Instead, we should look at it differently and understand if it's truly something we need and whether it's going to help further our spiritual lives or not. But in this story, King Chitraketu, he fulfills that desire, and Girabhuni gives him the means through a yajna to fulfill that desire. And he says Girabhuni says it'll cause great happiness and great distress, and that is the duality of any fulfillment of any material desire in this world. So if we have a material desire and we think it'll bring us happiness, we are assured by Krishna that it's like the seasons, right? It might be might give us happiness for some time, but it will also be the cause of our distress later on. So in the story, the fulfillment of the desire causes King Chitraketu to become overly attached to the wife that gives birth to his son, and as a result, he neglects his duty to his other. He has 1 crore wives because he was so desiring of a son that he continued to have wives because he wanted a son. So because his first wife and his highest wife, Kritaduti, gives him the son, he starts focusing on that wife, and he starts getting more and more attached. And if you read the verses, it says he becomes overly attached and starts overexerting, focusing on that one wife and that child. So that we fulfill the material desire, but get overly attached to it. So whenever something does happen, it will bring us misery. So takeaway there is, we shouldn't be attached to these temporary material desires. And even if we do get something that's material, shouldn't become attached to it. Finally, the other side of this attachment are the other wives of King Chitraketu. So they had a strong attachment to the king and the time the king was spending with them, and they became agitated because the king is spending so much time with this one wife and the son. So even though they had everything, and they were queens, they took the attachment for the king, the king's attachment for his son, as a threat to their existence. And there's a term that they use, that they feel as though they are lower than maidservants, because even maidservants will get the interaction with the king, and they will get confirmation or affirmation for doing something. But with the king so attached to his son, they're not even as fortunate as a maidservant. But this is just it's false ego and attachment to the wrong thing, right? So they developed envy, and when we develop envy, Krishna says that we lose our intelligence and we become hard-hearted. So there are many examples in Bhagavatam where, because of envy, they fail to see reason, right? Like Ravana and Duryodhana, they all have some great envy, and that causes them to lose their intelligence. And ultimately, they poison the poor child. This is a terrible thing to do, right? To poison a child. And Girabhuni and Narada, they come and they provide intelligence at the time of lamentation. So the first thing that they explain, right, is that the relationship between father and son is illusory. It's just arranged by the Supreme Lord. So whatever grief that King Chitraketu and Kriti Duti, or feeling, is just attachment from the is just from as a result of their attachment to the body and the relationships associated with the body. So they explain, right, that it's, the body, your soul, and you're not this body, and the Lord arranges you to have, this father, or he arranges you to be a son in one life and a father in another life. So it's the grief that they have is simply because they're attached to the body and the bodily identification that this is their son. But in reality, the soul is ever wandering. And now the movie brings the boy back, and the boy explains that the soul is always wandering; it's not attached, and that the soul is apart from the body, and that perspective helps King Chitraketu to realize that shouldn't be attached to this boy's passing, and instead it helps him focus on his relationship with the Lord. So then, Narada Muni provides the mantra by which the king can chant and develop, and then the king focuses his entire, existence on in 7 days to chant, and similar to like Maharaj Parikshit, right? He has 7 days, and he's focused on just hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Similarly, King Chitraketu is just focused on chanting this mantra and developing relationship. And as a result of the great chanting and intensity and devotion, then the Lord Sankarsana appears, Anantadev, and the 4 Kumaras come as well, and they present themselves to give darshan and purify the king. So we'll go to our verses, and this is a beautiful picture. This picture is, King Chitraketu is in grief, and Narada Muni and Angirishi are explaining. And then this picture is, the Kumaras are sitting, and Sankarshan is there. The Lord is there giving darshan. So the King Chitraketu pays obeisances and go through as many verses as we can. So he says, he first says this verse, Chitraketu vacha ajita jita sama matvihi sadhubhir bhavan jitatmabhir bhavata vijitas te apicha bhajatam akamat akamat manam ya atmadoti karunaha. Chitraketu said, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Prabhupada King Jai. O unconquerable Lord, although you cannot be conquered by anyone, you are certainly conquered by devotees who have control of the mind and senses. They can keep you under their control because you are causelessly merciful to devotees who desire no material profit from you. Indeed, you give yourself to them, and because of this, you also have full control over your devotees. So King Chitraketu is explaining, that through his meditation and from his learnings, he's realized that, the importance of the relationship between the jiva and the Lord, rather than the relationship between, material, some material affiliation. So he understands his position in life and his purpose in life. And so, which is that we should have, his purpose is we should develop relationship with God and develop love for God. So, what I thought of here is just like we have, there's the 6 exchanges that are described between devotees, right? You give and take prasadam, you give and take gifts, you give and take, exchange your heart, and you inquire submissively. And so similarly, right, we should have the same relationship. We have the same relationship with the Supreme Lord, and we should develop this supreme relationship, this relationship, divine relationship. So there are 2 qualifications that King Chitraketu speaks about, right? One is control the mind and senses, and then two is desire no material profit. So we must be, to have a relationship, we must be pure of heart and mind, and our only desire should be, to serve Krishna. So in terms of the mind, the term King Chitraketu uses is samamati, which means never deviate. They never deviate from devotional service, regardless of happiness or distress. So this is steadiness that only comes through regular service and sadhana. So first, before we can get to this qualification or meet this qualification, we have to do steady devotional service. And then the second thing is we should not have any ulterior motives. Our desire should be to simply serve the Lord unconditionally, and that should be our goal. And what does it mean to conquer? Right in this verse, Prabhupada Priyamataji gave the definition of like conquer means convince the Lord that we love Him and then we want to serve Him. And what I thought similarly, right, is conquer means conquer our own desires and replace those with the desire to serve the Lord. So, so this verse is focusing on the relationship between Jiva and the Lord. So next verse, Tava vivivaha kalo bhagavan jagat udaya stiti layadini vishvasrajaste mas amas tem samas tatra mishras pradanti pritag abhimatya. So, translation. My dear Lord, this cosmic manifestation and its creation, maintenance, and annihilation are all but your opulences. Since Lord Brahma and the other creators are nothing but small portions of a portion of you, their partial power to create does not make them God. Their consciousness of themselves as separate lords is therefore merely false prestige. It is not valid. So, we always see in all the prayers, devotees always, they start, they pay obeisances and then they start glorifying the Lord. So here the King Chitraketu starts glorifying the opulences of the Lord. So he's recognizing the supremacy of the Lord, the insignificance of material energy, and the insignificance of partial manipulators of this energy, like demigods, and even insignificance of jivas as well. So we can understand that the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes and source of all energies, and demigods and jivas are like sparks of a fire or drops of an ocean, but they are not the same in terms of quantity. They may be similar in quality, but not in the same quantity. Ultimately, right, what we should understand is the Lord is the source of all spiritual and material entities and energies. So what the second piece here is, that energy, material energy, gets given to Brahma and other demigods to maintain and manage. So and even to us to maintain and manage, right? Whatever we are given, we have not total control over, but we have the ability to use it in Krishna service or use it for some material sense gratification. So what we can understand is all of these transformations, we think that we are the cause of the transformation. So if we think of like making like yogurt out of milk, right? So when you have milk and then you add yogurt and then it becomes yogurt, we think, oh, okay, I did this, but that's not the case, right? It's milk comes from the cow, which Krishna has created. Yogurt has come from bacteria that Krishna has created. The transformation that the bacteria goes through to make yogurt is Krishna's energy doing Krishna's bidding. And then when we actually get yogurt, that's also it's also Krishna's energy, just different form of milk. So ultimately, everything is coming from the Lord and belongs to the Lord. So our takeaway here is, demigods are also just fallen souls, just like us. But because of the false ego that they have, they think, and the false ego we have as well, they think that we are the cause of this transformation. So, and then we get attached, and we get sense of proprietorship, and our false ego takes over, and we think, like Chitraketu, that hey, this is my son and I lost my son, but it's really just false ego and attachment to thinking in the bodily conception of life. So what we have to realize is everything comes from Krishna. Even mind, intelligence, senses also come from Krishna. The power to transform, manipulate this energy that demigods may have, and we may have to some very limited extent, all comes from Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada gives an example of airplane, and that we might think that human mind has created airplane, but really all the intelligence, the materials, the raw materials, all of that comes from Krishna. And similarly, like at work, right, when we might create something, and we create it from something else, and we think that, okay, I created this, and then eventually we get paid for it, and we get some other form of we get Lakshmi, and we think, okay, I earned this Lakshmi, but in reality all of it is given to us by Krishna. We are just receiving it because of Krishna's mercy. So we should recognize the Lord in the cause of everything, that it's not us, we shouldn't have this false ego. So the takeaway again here, right, is we should recognize the supremacy of the Lord and the insignificance of material energy and demigods. Not that we should respect demigods, we should always respect demigods, we just shouldn't worship them. So next verse is 36. Paramanu parama mahatos from adi anantara vartitraya viduraha adav ante picha sattvanam yad duruvam tad evantare lepi evantar ale api. Translation: you exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything, from the most minute particle of cosmic manifestation, the atom, to the gigantic universes and total material energy. Nonetheless, you are eternal, having no beginning, end, or middle. You are perceived to exist in these three phases, and thus you are permanent. When the cosmic manifestation does not exist, you exist as the original potency. So again, in this verse, right, it's continuing helping us get the knowledge so that we can overcome our false ego. So again, Chitraketu is highlighting the potency of the Lord, and how, in the last verse, he talked more about just material energy and what as jivas we might interact with. But in this verse, he's talking about even beyond jivas, right? The whole universe. So the whole universe is coming from the Lord, and each universe is just like an atom. So and even though it's like an atom, and it still comprises everything that we can see and experience. So he's the source of all material things, but he remains permanent and unchanged. So the Lord, he upholds all of these things with a spark of his splendor, which which if we think about, right, is the material world is 1/4 of the entire spiritual world and material world combined. And in the material world, there are, unlimited universes, and in each universe, Krishna is sustaining the beginning, the middle, and end, and all of the energy and everything that happens within. So if we understand this, right, that Krishna is the ultimate enjoyer and he's the ultimate controller, it will help us put into perspective, who we are. We are, Krishna is inconceivable, and we are very, 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 very small. So we recognize the supremacy of the Lord. So this verse also continues to help us understand, how we can overcome the false ego by highlighting the magnificence and unlimitedness of the Lord. So in the verse, it talks about there's 7 layers, and each 10 times greater than the previous one. And, and the highest, the largest one is false ego. So what we can understand is false ego is 100 times the size of Earth, and that's what's covering us in this universe. And this is the false ego that we are bound by, and all the demigods are bound by. And we have to overcome this false ego. And the only way to overcome it, right, is through devotional service and building relationship with Krishna. And another way to look at it, right, is even though this false ego is so big and it's 100 times the size of the Earth, it's still an insignificant atom compared to the Lord. So in the last verse, it talked about how each universe is an atom. So the false ego in the universe is even smaller, and so that again emphasizes the magnitude and the magnificence of the Lord, and the unlimitedness of the Lord, and the inconceivable potency of the Lord. So I will skip these points just for time. So this in verse 39, there's 2 things I want to maybe highlight. One is King Chitraketu is explaining his own position in this verse. He's saying, okay, I had material desires, and even though I had material desires, because Narada Muni came and he helped me understand my situation, I was able to overcome it, and I was able to build a relationship. So what we can understand is, if we worship the Lord will give us knowledge to take us beyond the bodily platform. And then the next thing in the verse it says is, it's not just important to understand that we're not this body, right? It's also important that we have to associate with the Lord and associate with his devotees and build a relationship. That's when we get some hope to escape the cycle of birth and death. So knowledge also means applied knowledge, meaning we have to actually apply and we have to experience it and realize it, which is what bhakti is experiential science. So whatever desire that we have, like King Chitraketu had desire for a son, what we should do instead is just pray to the Lord that, Lord, you know what I need, you know what I want, you know what is good for me. So I will leave it to you to give me whatever you think is best for me, right? And if we do that, then we can, in the verse, it talks about how, if we understand this knowledge and apply this knowledge, it's like the material desires are fried seeds and they don't produce plants. So we might have these seeds of desire, but because we apply the knowledge, those seeds become fried, and we can be free from that material entanglement. The other thing I wanted to highlight in this verse is it's difficult for us to get guidance from within, at least for me, right? Because I'm not very purified. So we should pray to the Lord that give me guidance through my spiritual master, through devotees, through my Shiksha Guru, and through reading or knowledge or whatever it might be, because it's much harder for us because we're so, we're not purified and we're so fallen. It's harder for us to listen and hear what the Paramatma is saying clearly. So we should, pray that we get the guidance directly from outside. I know I'm at time, and the only two things, one more point I'll highlight is this verse talks about the ultimate duty, which is, Prabhupada Priyamataji said, chant Hare Krishna and teach others, which it summarizes everything that we should do. But Srila Prabhupada makes it even easier for us, right? He says, he makes it clear, chant 16 rounds, follow regulative principles, associate with devotees, take prasadam, read books, and then obviously preach. So King Chitraketu is also explaining the same duty, is that, we have to be equal to all living entities, moving and non-moving, and not considering high or low, or getting too attached, non-attached. And that is the highest goal of life. So I will end here. Thank you, Mataji, for this opportunity. Sorry, I wasn't able to cover all the points I wanted to share, but again, thank you for the opportunity, and over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. That was a fantastic presentation, Prabhu. I didn't realize how fast the time went. Very beautifully you presented, Prabhu. You started with the pastime and and connected it to the learnings of attachments and desires. That was very good, Prabhu. Nicely narrated the pastime. I know we don't have a lot of time, so quickly I'll say a few points that I jotted down. So Krishna is everything, right? Krishna is all the energies. He's inconceivable. And the point that our false ego is 100 times that's the size of the earth, but we are still like so much about our false ego. We are just like an atom in compared to the Lord. This is like a very good comparison for us to realize, we are so insignificant in front of the Lord, and, it's very hard to understand Lord. Krishna is the cosmic manifestation. He's the beginning. He maintains, creation, maintenance, destruction is everything him. We are just so insignificant, and really like the example of what Prabhupada gave, and you also mentioned about the source, the aeroplane and the source of it. We think we are doing it, but everything is Krishna. Krishna is doing everything. And lastly, the point that we should control our mind and senses. All our desires, what we have to control and make it as a desire to serve the Supreme Lord. And finally, you very nicely summarized, Prabhupada has made it easy for us, chanting the 16 rounds, association with devotees, and reading the books. That is a key. And chant and spread that was something that we learned from Mataji, and you also reiterated, so that was very good. With that, thank you so much, Prashanth Prabhu. We will conclude the program today. Next week, we will meet with another devotee presenting these prayers. Thank you all devotees for joining the BhagavatSanga program. Hare Krishna.